my name is Bart. I'm from Redulf and Roche. Today we're going to be chatting with Chris Burke about what's happening with accessibility these days. Stay tuned. Okay, I think we've got it. Is this recording?
I hope so.
Okay, good.
It is recording.
Chris, guys, everyone, I'd like to welcome Chris and myself. I'd like to welcome myself to this recording. Where my name is Bart. I'm from Redulf and Roche, and Chris here, Burke. You're from.
Hey Bart, I'm Chris from Otaku.
Lovely. And today we're actually going to have a really quick conversation about accessibility. As you know, it's COVID and people are working from home, and that means that more than ever, accessibility is something that's really, really important because people of all abilities are going to need to access their devices from home a lot easier. So, Chris, I just wanted to start off a quick overview of how you came into accessibility. What was your background like, and then we'll get into some of the projects that you've done. And why do you think it's important, especially now?
Sure. So I've been working with clients in the digital space for 10 or 12 years. And I guess over that time, worked with many organisations that need our help, our experience and expertise. And that sort of led me to into the accessibility space, wanting to help clients do better on the web. And I think accessibility is a good measure of that. So obviously being mindful of the users that are going to be using your digital products or your website, their abilities and their situations means that often the outcome when you're considering those things is a better quality digital product. And so, I've sort of been around accessibility for a couple of years now. Been doing a lot of training and public speaking and so on, and kind of gaining traction in the space.
And how have you found that to have changed over the last sort of 6 months or the last even 12 months? Has it become more important, less important, equally important in terms of the organisations recognising the need for stronger accessibility?
Yeah, I think at the moment it's really it's a hot topic. It's really brought it to the fore. Organisations that weren't doing particularly well with digital channels before, and probably were relying on, for example, bricks and mortar of people coming into your shop or into your office. Whereas now a lot of those channels are either closed or at least on hold for a little while. But people are definitely relying much more on communicating with businesses and organisations through the web. And even if it's simple stuff like a contact form or that kind of thing, now people are definitely relying on the web a lot more. And I think it's exposing a lot of our clients that we've worked with. It's exposing how poorly they were doing coming into this. And so before they might have got away with a not so optimum solution, but now they're sort of thinking, well, we need to do a lot better on the web. We need to be more accessible. We need to make sure that clients can or customers can actually make contact with us or go through the checkout or whatever the scenario might be.
Yeah. And look, traditionally, I mean, my view, and, probably was wrong, but I just thought it's something that governments and, they have to tick an accessibility box, or if you're an enterprise or whatever. But are you seeing that people are being more proactive now, or that different organizations are engaging you or like somebody that really focuses on accessibility?
Yeah, there's definitely in the web accessibility space, there's definitely a sort of a stigma around that it's for government. So, we're not government, we don't need to do it, or we don't work with government, so we don't, our clients don't need to worry about it. But actually, I mean, it's a thing that we all need to be more mindful and more inclusive, regardless of the size of the organisation. I've got clients at the moment that are, large retailers or not-for-profits in the health space, for example. And they're all in a position now where they want to do better on the web and be more inclusive.
Yeah.
So definitely not just a government thing. And certainly in terms of our obligation to do better, it doesn't just rest on government. We all, we should all be doing better.
Yeah. And does, out of curiosity, do accessible websites rank better in Google? Like, is there commercial, I guess, benefit as well as a social benefit?
Yeah, there is. There's a flow-on effect. So if you've got a better product, and the way the markup's written, and the way that you've thought out the structure of the site, and the way that you're the way you've written the content and that kind of stuff, all adds to the way Google's going to find and rank your site. Also, if you improve the experience, so if people tend to come to the site and stay on the site longer, and that kind of thing, then obviously Google looks at that kind of stuff these days as well.
Yeah. And, a few years ago, there was this shift, I know, in UI design. It was called like mobile first, where people were designing UI for mobile first. Do you see that happening with accessibility first? Like accessibility is not an afterthought, but it's actually part of the initial design process?
I don't see that shift. There is a shift in thinking that, I guess one of the stigmas with accessibility was that it's expensive and it's a headache. So, if you come along and do an assessment after the fact, then you'll have this huge long list of things that you want to go and change, which are often expensive.
Yeah.
Certainly the conversation now is around how to embed accessibility as a principle right from the start. So writing it into requirements, thinking about who your users are going to be, what their abilities are, and means that often there's either no cost or very little cost if you're thinking about it right from the start.
And when do you think it should be thought about? Like, if someone like yourself, would you be coming ideally in an ideal project or in a best practice project, coming in at the very beginning, or like the strategic stage, or at the wireframe, or like where do you ideally see this happening? Obviously, that's not.
Yeah, so I've got experience with the whole gamut. So audits, working on PDFs that aren't accessible, the accessible content writing, the whole lot. But ideally, the best place to bring someone in is right at the start when you're thinking about doing something new. And even if it's just to have that kind of high-level conversation around what should we consider, is this something that we want to go for? What does success look like for us? So obviously there are standards, but sometimes you might not want to reach the standard. You might just want to do bits and pieces. And even that would be better to have that conversation at the start.
Yeah.
So that it flows through, so everyone on the team knows what their job is.
Yeah. And for an organisation looking at maybe implementing like more of a proactive approach to accessibility, what's the engagement term like? Like, how long would someone like you need to be engaged on a project? And I know it's like kind of how long is a piece of string, or a slab of Velcro, but like, when you're talking about accessibility, like, let's say someone's designing a website from scratch and you're coming in at the beginning. Are we talking days, weeks, months? Like, what do you like?
Yeah, it is kind of a how long it's a piece of string question. You can have, I've had projects I've worked on where I've had a very light touch. Mm-hmm. And so by that, I mean, it might just be a 1 hour convo right at the start, just to kind of get people thinking about the right, get them in the right direction.
Yeah.
Other things, it's more of an ongoing. There's one team that I'm working with at the moment. We catch up fortnightly.
Yeah.
And I'm just sort of helping get their knowledge up to speed. They want to do all the work internally, but I'm helping them get up to speed faster than they would if they were doing it by themselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes if it's something like an audit, then an audit can take, depending on what the project is, it might be as small as a couple of days up to a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So it varies, but it can definitely start with a light touch.
Okay, and are there any organisations, like, sometimes there's product companies out there as well, or is there any organisation where you feel that couldn't benefit from having at least an accessibility audit, or just going there for a couple of days making sure that they're compliant? Is there someone that's just like totally excluded, or do you think everyone? I don't know that you probably think.
I'm a little biased. I think everyone can benefit. Yeah, totally. There's some misconceptions. Sometimes people in really small business think things like, oh, well, no one like that uses our website.
Yeah, exactly.
But
right.
I think that everyone can benefit. Just anecdotal, like some really high level stats. About 1 in 5 Australians identify as having a disability, so about 20%.
Right. Wow.
Which means that any business out there that has people using their website is going to come into contact with people with some form of disability, whether it's an eyesight issue or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And so to argue that we don't have people like that using our site it just doesn't. 20% is a fair.
Yeah, it is. And does that include, not that elderly is disability, but does that I can just see how these accessibilities like enhancements could actually affect people that are a little bit more elderly that are trying to get into the internet, but maybe they can't read things as well. Or they might utilize some of the audio cues, or that is the market as well. Maybe that's not part of the thing you're talking about.
So when I say 20% of people who actually identify as having a disability, there's a whole range of the rest of the market that can benefit, as you say. So whether it's people with low literacy levels, whether it's English as a second language, people that are elderly that don't have great tech experience, and even situational. I mean, one of the key pillars is situational. So it might be temporary. You might be, I watch a lot of video content on my phone on the tram, for example, and I don't have my headphones on normally, so I need subtitles to consume the content. And it's not that I identify as having a disability. It's just that content is more accessible to me if I use the subtitles. And so when you kind of add up those broader groups, you're really talking about sort of almost half or more than half of your users are going to benefit from directly from being more accessible.
Yeah, and I think it's just like a really great practice because, like you pointed out, accessibility just means being able to access that content in a better way. Like you don't necessarily have to identify as having a disability or one. It's just like I use some of the accessibility features on my iPhone because they serve me better at a certain point in time. And if I didn't have those features, my user experience would be slightly degraded. And so would you say that, accessibility could almost be part of enhancing the user experience for the broader population, not just those that identify as having, a disability?
Yeah, it certainly falls under UX. So UX is the umbrella and accessibility is kind of a particular niche under that umbrella. But I find working with digital teams, 9 out of 10 conversations I have where someone comes to me and says, we're wanting to do this or that, which one is more accessible? 9 out of 10 of those conversations is actually just a UX, which is what's better UX, what's more logical, what's easier to consume, what makes more sense. And sometimes it's specific accessibility stuff around some of the criteria, but it's just how can we do better in terms of the UX overall?
Yeah, that's great. Good. Is there anything? So basically, like I just really think that accessibility, anything that creates a better user experience for many people, is a no-brainer. It's like you've got to do it, and so accessibility definitely falls under that. Is there anything else that you'd like people to know about accessibility, or the direction it's heading, or the benefits, or anything that you think there's a misconception, or anything else? You've got a joke that you'd like to share with us.
As I said, there's a few misconceptions. One of which is that it can be, that it's, well, obviously we've said that it's for government only, which it's not, that it doesn't apply to small business, that it's going to be costly. And if you think about it and do it right from the start, then often it's not costly. Yeah. And the other thing is that some people sort of tend to get a little bit caught up on which standard they're going to reach or what level of compliance. And so if they can't reach a certain standard, they just say, we're not going to do that. But the essence of why we're doing it in the first place is to kind of be more inclusive, reduce barriers. And so you don't need to get caught up necessarily in the first instance about which standard are you going to get to and how we're going to test and all the criteria. It's more about just making some of those steps forward. And even if you're just doing some of the things, that's you're on the right path.
Yeah. So there are different standards of accessibility ratings that you can aspire to.
Yeah. So WCAG is the kind of accepted benchmark. WCAG 2.1 is what we're up to now. And there's 3 levels. There's A, AA, and AAA. The government mandated requirement in Australia is WCAG AA, which is the intermediate. And so most people should be striving towards AA. But if you don't have the resources or the knowledge to get to that level, then even just having that conversation and implementing some of it and getting the team, more knowledgeable and getting some of that language happening.
It's really about starting a conversation and including it more and more into everyday conversations and seeing the real benefits that it can provide to the community.
Often when we start working with a new client, the first step is to do some training. And so whether we do a 1-hour lunch and learn, or whether it's more of a, I do a 3-hour workshop, for example, where you get more into the nuts and bolts, but just getting everyone on the team on the same page and thinking about the same stuff, and being more aware of the topic is a good place to start.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. That's great, Chris. Well, thank you so much. If anyone's interested, or I mean, I hope this has been enlightening. It's certainly something that I'm, quite interested in, just because it's part of UX and design. I'm all about the great experience. And Chris, you're very knowledgeable, and you've helped a number of organisations. So, yeah, I just want to thank you very much for jumping on and having this conversation with me.
No
And yeah,
worries.
if anyone, I hope you guys got some value. But if you're interested in knowing more, just reach out. Happy to introduce you to Chris, and we can talk more accessibility. Yeah, good.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Bart.
No worries. Take care. Have a great evening.
Cheers.
Okay. I don't know how to stop record on this thing. Oh, here we go.
We can cut that.